What is a professional tenant and how is it that they have become every landlord's worst nightmare? Well, we're going to talk about that right now. What's going on, everyone? My name is Andrew, and today we're going to talk about what a professional tenant is, how to avoid them, how they go about doing what they do, and most importantly, how you as a landlord can deal with one if you happen across one. But as always, before we get into everything, I do want to remind everyone that if you are serious about real estate investing, that you should definitely join our Property Hustlers Facebook group, because we talk all things real estate, whether it's property management, house flipping, you name it, we got it. So check that out so you can join our free monthly networking events right here in Hamilton. The first thing you need to know is that a professional tenant is somebody who rents a place from a landlord and has the explicit intention to move in and not pay rent. There's a big difference between somebody who happens across bad times and can't pay their rent as opposed to somebody who has the intention to not pay rent right from the start. So just because you have a tenant that might not be paying rent, it doesn't mean that you have a professional tenant. Now, generally speaking, a professional organization like a property management company or a real estate institution is far less likely to get a professional tenant, and that is largely due to their rigorous screening processes that they have in place. The first thing this person's gonna do is want to make a good first impression. And this usually happens by a tenant showing up, nice clothes, a nice car, being well-spoken, friendly, and then they're going to proceed to move on to other things such as falsifying information on their application. If you are looking for a credit check, you want to make sure that you pull the credit on them. Don't let them give it to you because those things can be falsified. The other thing they might falsify is bank statements. They might falsify things like employment reference checks. Maybe the guy has his friends answering the phone for the reference checks, and maybe he submitted some fake pay stubs and you're just like, things look pretty okay. You ask the tenant for a deposit and they might write you a check for last month's rent. And what they will often do is they'll try to write that last month's rent check as close as possible to their move-in date. When they are ready to move in, they're going to give you another check in exchange for those keys. And guess what happens once they take the keys and you deposit those checks? The checks bounce. So you might confront the tenant and say, hey, our checks bounce. What am I going to do about this? Can you please give me new checks, or can you send them money via e-transfer or whatever? And then the tenant's going to say, yeah, sorry, I don't know what happened. Had some banking problems. I'm going to write you a check right away. Just give me a day. So you wait another day, and now you get another email from the tenant saying that there's maintenance issues. Why didn't they clean the place? And you might be thinking, I did clean the place. And then they're going to start amalgamating a list of problems and say, you know what? This isn't what I signed up for. You need to fix these things and then I'll pay you some rent. That's how we're going to do this. And now you as a good landlord might be thinking, okay, you know what? Some of these complaints are legitimate. I didn't know the toilet was broken. I didn't know the sink was leaking. I'm going to go in and fix these things. And this might actually distract you from doing certain prudent things like serving your N4. Where professional tenants catch inexperienced landlords is in their human element, where they want to work with you as opposed to starting off this relationship working against you. They haven't paid you first month's rent, they haven't paid you last month's rent, and they're complaining about a whole bunch of issues. These should all be red flags. By the time they fix these problems, they're going to try to delay even further and say, okay, yeah, you know what? I'm opening a new bank account and I need to go get more checks. Give me a little bit of time, or come by this weekend, I'll give you cash. And then when you go by the weekend, they weren't there. You gotta get the picture. A month may have passed before you realize this guy's playing me. He has no intention of paying rent. I need to start the legal process right now. So you're going to serve your N4. You need 14 days to file your L form. And then after you file your L form, now it's going to take you, in today's climate, a couple of months to get a hearing. We've waited as long as 6 months to get a hearing. And while you're waiting for that hearing, now you have this tenant living in your property for free, possibly building up problems for you to solve. But let's say you now get to a point where you have a hearing day, and this is where the tenant starts to exploit the system. They will skip that first hearing. The one that it took you a couple of months to get, they will skip it. And they now have to reschedule it, which might take you another 2 months. And then when you do actually have your hearing with the tenant attending, the adjudicators tend to have a disposition, at least in our experience, to want to give the tenant an opportunity to work things out as opposed to just granting an eviction. They will try to do things like exploit the maintenance issues that they're having at the property and demand that before they release payment, you correct them, even though you might say that you've corrected them. If you can't prove it, the adjudicator may let it fly. The next thing that can happen is they might negotiate unfavorable payment options, and you might be saying, this guy owes me thousands of dollars. Why are we negotiating some kind of an unreasonable payment plan? And depending on who you get or how you present yourself, you might be stuck with that. Your tenant will just falter on the plan. Then you will apply for eviction because hopefully you got an order that says, hey, you're allowed to apply for eviction. If they fail to comply, if the tenant appeals that eviction order and says, the landlord's lying, I did pay him, the board is probably going to stay the order for eviction and they're going to now have another hearing. Fundamentally, most people are generally good. We have 800 tenancies across Southern Ontario that we manage, and most of them are going perfectly fine. This is a very special person that you can happen across that's going to take advantage of you and take advantage of the system. And I'm just trying to point these out because they can happen to varying degrees. Not everyone is going to go full throttle on something like this. If you are now at a point where you have a piece of paper saying you can evict the tenant, I've seen professional tenants go to the landlord and say, hey, listen, you know what? We've done this song and dance long enough. I'm willing to leave, but I want you to pay me $10,000 to leave. And you're going to say, why? I'm not giving you a dime. You suckered me for all this time staying in my house for free, not paying. I'm not paying you a nickel. But then the tenant's like, I'm going to trash your place. I'm going to destroy your apartment. If you don't want to pay me, that's fine. But if you pay me, I'll leave and your place will be intact. Now you have a business decision to make, and it fundamentally bothers you on a principle level. You don't want to have to pay this guy, but you know he's going to damage your property. So is that what you're going to do? The amount of time it will take, your legal costs, your loss of rent, what you have to pay the tenant if you need to pay them to leave at the end, your sheriff costs, or the potential renovation costs if your tenant trashes the place. Looking back, you might think, okay, I should have maybe offered the tenant a cash for keys deal from the very start, costing me way more time, way more headaches, way more money than if I just paid him in the beginning and swallowed the cost. And if any of you landlords are having any serious tenant issues that you need help dealing with, we can coach and consult with you to manage these problems. So check us out in the link in the description below if you want more info about that. As always, like, subscribe, and we will see you on the next one.